Okay, now I can get started. Hello. I am Dr. Nikki. Dr. Nikki knows. I am a licensed psychologist. I'm a pleasure coach. But tonight I'm coming to talk to you about being the creator and author of The Pleasure Pursuit Planner and Journal. It is finally here. I am so excited about this for a lot of different reasons, and I'll get into all of those as we go on with the live. But it's a unique project. It's a unique product, and I think that people kind of have an idea about what it is, but aren't really sure of what it all entails. And so that's what this is. I'm going to tell you all about the details. I'm going to tell you how you can use it, how I think it'll make an impact on changing your life and changing your relationship to pleasure. I'll share more about why I designed it, and where you can get it, most importantly. So let's just dive right in. So the Pleasure Pursuit is a planner plus journal. You heard me say I was a licensed psychologist and coach, right? That means I think about the reason why, the intention, the purpose behind most things that we do as humans, and especially about our relationship to pleasure, our mindset about pleasure, our beliefs about pleasure, our assumptions about our pleasure worthiness. I think these are things that are really important for us to live the highest expression of ourselves, to live the most full and joyful lives. And yet there are things that we oftentimes take for granted. Hi, welcome in. So I designed the Pleasure Pursuit Planner plus the reflection, and so it puts the journal, and so it puts both pieces together. So it is a beautifully designed planner that has spaces for, get to a planner page. So there are planning pages for 52 weeks of the year. They're not dated, so you can purchase it at any time, and you can start your pleasure journey at any time. And each week starts with your pleasure plan, and then you chart out when during the week you're going to do your pleasure, when you're going to pursue pleasure. And then at the end of that week, there are reflection questions, and then some journal prompts. And so that piece repeats itself for 52 weeks. And then in between, hi, welcome in between, at about every quarter, there's a quarterly reflection. And then at the end of the planner, there is a yearly reflection. So really for you to think about what might be different in your life if you reflections on a year of pleasure, right? What would be different in your life if you actually made a commitment to yourself to prioritize pleasure, to get really curious with yourself about pleasure, what it means for you, what it does for your mental health, how it changes or shapes your relationship to other people in your life, to your romantic partners, to your lovers, to other important relationships. That is really sort of the undergirding idea with the Pleasure Pursuit. So again, it's 52 weeks. That includes very specific prompts that facilitate you being very intentional about the types of pleasure that you want to pursue, that you want to learn more about, that you want to hold yourself accountable for engaging in, and then reflection about that, so that over time, if you're consistent with using it, what you can really do is chart your own progress. Like, you can look at your own data and you can get a real sense of how much you maybe are prioritizing yourself, how differently you feel when you deprioritize yourself. You can really grow in your ability to expand your capacity for pleasure as well. So I want to talk about that tonight. I want to give you just a little bit of a backstory about this, like where did this thing come from? Because part of the excitement for me, quite honestly, is this is the first product that I have developed as an entrepreneur. So if you don't know about me, I was previously a tenured professor. These Apple products and the bubble thumbs. The first part of my career was in academia. I got my doctorate in counseling psychology in 2002. And at the time, all of my mentoring and support from faculty was to push me towards the academic career. And that's not unusual, I don't think, for especially Black PhDs. And so I actually was a professor for 17 years total. I got tenure at the University of Houston. I taught for years therapy, practicum courses, theories about counseling and change, about diversity, multiculturalism at the time it was called, social justice. I had my own research agenda, and my research was around Black women's like normative sexuality, right? This was during the time when we were getting so much media coverage about the disproportionate rates of HIV for heterosexual Black women, as well as other disproportionate rates of STIs for Black women. And my research was really aimed at is the narrative that Black women are just like sexually promiscuous or engaging in all this risky sexual behavior? Is that actually true? Does the data bear that out? And so fast forward to being in academia for 17 years and hitting burnout and making the transition out to entrepreneurship, I had no training or mentorship about how to be an entrepreneur. So I'm currently in my 4th year of business. Yes, this is my 4th year of business. So to launch this product is a really big deal for me. I have taken ideas and asked research questions and published in peer-reviewed journals. So I know about the process of starting with the question and going through the process of finding an answer. But I've never taken anything that was an idea in my head and produced a physical, tangible product that reflects my experience in working with clients, that reflects sort of my values and beliefs about the importance of pleasure, especially for Black women. And that I did this, that I followed through, that all the little steps that have come along the way to go from that idea to this actual product to having it available for purchase, I'm super, super proud of myself. It brings me just joy and excitement to talk about it. So last year, 2024, we're actually coming up on the 1-year anniversary. My mother passed away. It was unexpected. She and I were exceptionally close. I am an only child for the vast majority of my life. She was a single parent. And when she passed away, if you've lost a parent, you know how just wholly disorienting it is to be in the world without your parent. And so I returned back to practice early last year and realized pretty quickly that my grieving and mourning process was longer than I had sort of given myself time for it to be, that I really wasn't able to show up for my clients, my therapy clients in specific, but my coaching clients as well, in the way that I value, in the way that I want, with the same sort of standard of care that they were used to. That I was pouring into them and showing up for them, but it was taking a huge toll on me emotionally and mentally. And so I took a time out, a sabbatical of several months from my practice. And during that time, I asked myself a question. I said, what if you stopped thinking about yourself as a therapist or psychologist? And what if you start thinking about yourself as an entrepreneur? What would you do different? What would you change? Because what I realized is, remember, I got this degree in 2002. I have been seeing clients as a trainee since the late 90s. Even when I was in academia, I always had a small caseload. I often supervised other folks. So I have been doing therapy and involved in the therapeutic process as a professional in some way, shape, or form for over 20 years. And so what I realized was that I had a lot of knowledge and experience and expertise, but I was in a place in my life where me being the one to transmit that knowledge and expertise as my primary means of making a living was not sustainable for me at this time. And so I had this idea for a journal related to pleasure, a planner related to pleasure. And I said, okay, well, I can't sit around and do nothing and cry all day. I mean, I feel really sad and this is hard and grief is a whole thing. But I can keep working on my business while I have this time. And so let me grab the previous version because I think you have to really see it. Just one second. Okay, so, but I was like, you know what? This is just going to be like a little passion project, right? A little something that I do for fun. And started doing research and was thinking about just having it on like on Amazon, right? Like I would just do like KDP publishing and see what happened. And then when I started doing my research, I realized that, oh, you can't do spiral bound journals through KDP publishing. They only do what's called book bound. So I was like, okay, so let me switch. It felt like a compromise, but I was like, again, this is just a fun little product. I just want to see what happens. And so I went the self-publishing route with this planner, designed it myself. It looked totally different. As you can see in here, it looked different. And then, but I got it set up. I had a friend that was helping me with like the margins and all of that stuff. And then I got it and I was excited about it. Again, because I've brought this idea to life. But then I was like, but is it really giving? Like, do I feel really excited to have my name on this thing and my picture on this thing? I mean, it's kind of there, but... And one of the people that I had let look at it before it got in this format, but just like as a PDF, I wanted to consult with other colleagues and peers just to get some feedback. I let a couple people look at it. And one of them, I deeply admire this person and respect them. And I was asking for feedback really on like the content, right? Are all the ideas idean? Like, is it making sense? Does it flow? Are the pieces connecting? Is there anything in there that shouldn't be, etc., right? Hi, welcome in. And, but that person, in giving me feedback about the content, made a comment about the overall design of this. And I promise you, I fell all the way into my feelings. I was like, the rejection sensitivity in this one is super, super high. And so I was like, oh my God, this person that I respect and admire basically said my planner looks booty. Like, it's ugly. It looks like not up to par. And then I was like, okay. So we really like it. The more I worked on it, the more it evolved, the more excited I got. I was really drawing on my experiences and working with my coaching clients and thinking about just some of the themes that come up over and over again for high performing, high achieving, busy women. And I was like, okay, I've come this far. Are we going to give up the whole project and then we're going to be mad when somebody else does it? Or are we going to just do it? Just do the damn thing and do it right. And so then we move from, I'm doing it. I'm going all in. I'm going to actually hire a designer on Fiverr to help make this thing come to life, make it look cohesive, because my design aesthetic graphically, it leaves a lot to be desired in my mind. And then what comes out on that Canva don't always line up. So I was able to work with a designer and got into a place that I actually was like, I love this thing. So I was ready to go, ready to launch. I went, found a vendor that could produce them at a very affordable rate. And I asked them to develop a sample for it and was so excited to get the sample. I had come up with a name. I had submitted an application for copyright for the content and the book itself. I got my ISBN number. I was like, I am doing it, ready to go, ready to go. And then I started posting content here on Instagram with the previous title and was informed by another sex therapist that they had actually trademarked the title that I was using for this product. And so I was like, oh, yeah. So then I can't do that. I can't use the title. That's great. That's great. Okay. And so, had a little moment. Had a little bit of a grieving experience. Again, this all is happening last year in the process of grieving my mother and all of that. Trying to still figure out like where this business is going. And I started back seeing clients at this point as well. It was right around the holidays. So it was my first holidays of my mom. So I was like, oh my God. So I've come this far and I didn't do my due diligence. I didn't go to the U.S. Trademark and Patent Office website to actually Google the title. That's on me. So I pulled everything down and then went back to the drawing board and I talked about, I've used the term pursue pleasure. You have to be intentional about pursuing pleasure. Like I had talked about my clients that I work with as pleasure pursuers. I had developed some digital courses at one time called the Pleasure Pursuer Academy. And so I was like, well, why don't I just call it the Pleasure Pursuit, right? And I got feedback from people that knew, like had been with me through this whole process about the planner and development and the title and the whole thing. And then after I changed it to the Pleasure Pursuit, several of them said, I actually like that better. They were like, because the pursuit part really reflects the unapologetic, intentional, active, going after pleasure, right? Like not letting it be this passive thing, not letting it be dictated or defined by someone else, but for you as a woman to be really clear that you are worthy of pleasure and that you are so convinced that you are worthy of it, that you are going to prioritize it in your life. And you're so willing to prioritize it that you're going to actually put pen to paper and hold yourself accountable for it, right? And so I love like that little extra on it. So here we are. So let's get into what it actually involves. So the planner part has 4 components. I always have to forget. 1, 2, 3. Yeah. 4 components. You have first your pleasure theme. So for every component that's in the planner, there are introductory pages where I provide you with details about how to approach that part of the planner. So for the first thing, you're going to pick your pleasure theme for the week. So let me go to the planner pages for you. So you see here up at the top, you have the week. So, you know, whatever week it is for you. And then you choose your pleasure theme. And so these icons represent the pleasure theme that you choose. So it says, all pleasure is good pleasure. This is your opportunity to get curious and explore all of the different points on your pleasure continuum. Remember, this entire endeavor is aimed at helping you tap into and expand your access to and capacity for pleasure. Choosing your pleasure theme for the week is a perfect way to do this. So there's some options that I provide with the icons, and it's like playful, like what kind of pleasureful energy do you want to actually pull into your life? And one of the things that you would hear me talk about a lot, and I talk about with my clients all the time, is yes, all pleasure is good pleasure, but pleasure exists on a continuum and we welcome it all. So while a lot of my work is focused on erotic pleasure, on sexual pleasure, that is not the end all be all. And what we actually know is the more access you have to experiencing pleasure, the more you get to experience deeper, more intense, more variation in the levels, or I should say like quality of pleasure that you experience. But you also have a desire to have more pleasure in your life. So I wanted to give you a framework to start to like think about exploring what that might mean for you. So the different pleasure themes are playful, erotic, kinky, sensual, curious, and energetic. And so the goal is to really give you a working place to start to sort of reconsider your relationship to pleasure. What does like energetic pleasure feel like in your body? Where does it resonate in your body as different than maybe playfulness, right? For you to really make that connection between the mind and the body and start to create new pathways in your brain to give your body different access to pleasure, right? And so this is just a framework, and you might go through the process and develop different ones for yourself. So after you pick your pleasure theme for the week, you're going to then create a pleasure affirmation for yourself for the week. We know that the story that we tell ourselves about life, about ourselves, about situations, influences our reality. That is our reality. And in my experience, especially in working with my clients, a lot of women, high performing, high achieving, successful Black women have been disconnected from their pleasure because the story that they tell themselves about the importance of other people's needs or expectations or demands on their lives is more important than their own experience of pleasure. And that for a lot of heterosexual women, the experience of even erotic pleasure tends to be very male focused, right? That it is in response to a male partner rather than being something that you intrinsically own in your body for yourself. And so I want you to start to not only experience more different types of pleasure, different intensities of pleasure, but to start to really change your mindset about pleasure, to start to really increase your sense of pleasure worthiness. And so the pleasure affirmations are a wonderful way for you to do that, for you to really get intentional with yourself about why are you doing this, right? You bought the planner, you have it, you said you're a priority. So let's really get into it. And so then after you pick your pleasure or make your pleasure affirmation, the one that I have offered here in the planner says, today I affirm my commitment to pleasure. Another one is, I deserve to take time for myself and experience joy. And so I really want you to develop a different narrative about your access to and worthiness of pleasure. And we do that with our pleasure affirmations. So then once you have done your pleasure affirmation, we move into the rubber meeting the road, the intentions, right? What are you going to do? What is the actual plan for pleasure? We got our theme, we got our affirmations, but then what are our pleasure intentions for the week? So pleasure includes a wide variety of embodied experiences that bring a sense of joy, gratification, bliss, enjoyment, and satisfaction, up to and including erotic bliss. Great sex and orgasms are types of erotic pleasure. I know orgasms are great. However, they aren't the ultimate form of pleasure. And so what we want to do is think about how you can, again, expand your pleasure continuum. Because the more pleasure you experience, the greater your capacity for pleasure. And this planner is designed to help you achieve a more diverse types of pleasure in greater capacity on a more consistent basis. So in setting your pleasure intentions for the week, I encourage you to consider pursuing a wide variety of pleasures, such as a greater mind-body connection, physical relaxation, stress relief, new experiences, oral pleasure, so like the sounds, listening, vibrations through the ears, indulgence in yourself, decadent food or drink. Like I list, of course, all the different types of orgasms that you could have, right? But I really want you to set your pleasure intentions, right? I want to experience a full body orgasm this week, or I want to see like how deeply I can get connected to my body by increasing my emotional intimacy in my relationships, right? So this really is about a wide variety of pleasures. And so you will set your pleasure intentions for the week here. And then the last piece, which is what sets the girls apart from the women. And that is your pleasure strategy. Okay, we could talk a whole lot of stuff. Yes, I think I want more orgasms. Yeah, I want to be more fully present in my body. Yes, I want to experience more joy and pleasure day in and day out of my life. Okay, so how are we going to do that? And the pleasure strategy really gets at what do you need to do that? So to guarantee your pleasure strategy, there are so many obstacles getting in the way of your most pleasurable life. This is just real. We know that we live in a time where people are working so much. People are experiencing so much burnt out. The expectations for you in your job are exponentially higher than they were 3 or 4 years ago, right? If you are partnered, you have responsibilities to your partner. If you have children, you have caretaking needs. If you have other elders or other folks you're responsible for, you have caretaking needs. You may be involved with different community or other organizations to enhance your life, but they also require responsibility for you, right? So there's so much pulling at you, so much demanding of your time and energy and focus. And so I want to acknowledge that. Like, I want to be real about that. And so your pleasure strategy is the section that lets you get real and practical about the potential obstacles each week. So in addition, you are asked to consider where you can make adjustments by tapping into additional resources. And so the pleasure strategy really asks you to think about how much time you have this in a week, right? The week that you are working on your pleasure plan, right? How much time do you actually have? And what resources do you have to actually pursue pleasure? What does that bedroom look like? If you want to take a bath, what's the bathtub look like? Is it clean? Is it toys in there? Do you have like relaxing oils that you like? Do you have the things you need to do that, right? So time and space. And then also, if you are pursuing erotic pleasure, do you have the proper sex accessories, right? So our sex accessories, such as toys or other stimulants or lubricants or wedges or other supports, right? Do you have sex accessories to be able to do the thing that you said that you wanted to do? If your pleasure intention for the week is to pursue having a nipple orgasm, are there things that you could purchase that might help facilitate that, right? Do you have those things? What would that look like? If you're going to make it at home, what does that look like, right? So to really get nitty gritty into the strategy, let's be grown women and talk about the things that we need, okay? So you've done all of that. You have your affirmation, your theme, your intentions, your strategy. You've plotted out. When I've looked at it, actually, this week is a light week. I'm going to work on this nipplegasm thing Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, or Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, right? So you're going to plot out what you're going to do on the different ways. This is how we, again, hold ourselves accountable, right? The work that I do with my coaching clients is to be their accountability partner, but the coaching only works to the extent that they invest and engage themselves, right? And so hold yourself accountable with loving compassion, but accountable. So then the week is over, right? And you sit down and you have your reflections. So this is where the accountability part and the journal comes in. So we've had the pleasure planner component, and now we move into the reflections. And so the first question is, where would you rate your experiences this week on your pleasure continuum? So I have little icons here again. So we have our little pleasant, it was fine. It was good. I felt a little spark. I was more present than I normally would be. Or, it was quite pleasurable. You know what? That was a good time. And then we have off the charts. Amazing. Okay, one of these peak moments, peak experiences. Every week is not going to be here. But what I also want you to realize is, again, all pleasure is good pleasure. So you sort of think about, relative to the week, relative to maybe other things that are going on in your life, how did you rate your experience of pleasure this week? Because again, this is about deepening your relationship to pleasure, better understanding your body, better understanding how all of these other components with regard to your mental health, your emotional state, your other responsibilities, your energetic capacity, how are all those things influencing you and your access to feeling good and feeling joy and pleasure in your body? And so then after you do your pleasure continuum, I asked you, why did you give it that number, right? Because, you picked it because. And then we have the accountability check-in. So again, let's be realistic. You may set plans and they are foiled because life be lifing out here, right? And so maybe you didn't actually follow through with everything, and that's okay, right? We got 51 other weeks to try again. But if you did, I want you to think about, what are the supports? What did you do? Did you set a boundary with someone to make sure that you kept your commitment to yourself? Did you ask for help from someone? Did you delegate something to someone, right? Did you buy something for yourself to help really invest in this process? So I really want you to be detailed about what your supports were, and then what were your challenges, right? What happened? Did something happen at work? Was there a conflict in your relationship that derailed you? Did somebody get sick, right? To really be thoughtful about what got in the way. Because what we want to do is use that information to inform our choices and decisions the next time, right? This is all about learning and growth as well. And then the last two journal prompts every week are, how did your pleasure intentions impact your well-being this week? Because the reason why, that's not true. I'll say it this way. Let's not forget sex, sexual wellness, erotic experiences, erotic empowerment, all of that is important because it makes us feel good, and feeling good is our birthright. And it also very much impacts our physical and mental well-being. That women that report greater frequency of orgasm, that report greater sexual satisfaction, also tend to have lower heart rates. They tend to have overall better health. They tend to sleep better. They tend to have better self-assessments of their mental health, right? These things actually have impact, right? So how did your pleasure intentions impact your well-being overall this week? And then lastly, what did you learn about yourself? Did you learn something new? And maybe it's something that you learned about your physical body. Oh, I didn't know that I had an erogenous zone behind my knee like that. I didn't know that could happen. Or I didn't realize how much more I could enjoy a meal if I sat down at a lovely table with a candle, with the right ambiance in my home and just focused on being fully present. Like, I didn't realize like how much that would bring me joy or light me up, right? So what did you learn about yourself? And then we have, again, our quarterly reflections that are throughout here. And again, end of the year reflections. And that's it. I think the pleasure pursuit is something that can be used by any woman at any time. I think if you are in a long-term committed relationship and you have a great sex life, I think that you could still benefit from getting curious with yourself about, how do I engage with pleasure differently than at this point in my life than I did maybe when I was in my 20s, right? Or I wonder if I can expand or deepen the sexual satisfaction in my relationship to my partner if I'm more intentional about prioritizing my pleasure, right? What can I learn more about myself over time? And then if there are women who have not had great sexual experiences, or who have a history of sexual shame, or a history of sexual trauma, or really sort of just like neglected themselves, or don't feel really good about their body or their relationship to eroticism or feeling sexy. Again, these are all things that I see in my practice with my clients. And so there's space here for you to have a really personal and private, but honest and loving and gentle, self-compassionate process of exploring that with yourself, right? That you can work through some of those obstacles, those past traumas in ways that feel safe, contained, and on your own terms and at your own pace. So I really think the pleasure pursuit is for anybody. I've designed it especially for high performing, high achieving Black women. But there's benefit for us all. So if you have questions, you can definitely pop those in the chat. Let me know. I think you can still post lives to live on your IG page. So if you're watching this later, you can definitely drop questions in the chat or in the comments, and I'll be happy to answer them then. Now, you're excited. You're like, you know what, Dr. Nikki, I think I need that in my life. I really want to see what might change for me if I invested in a year of pleasure for myself. You can purchase the Pleasure Pursuit on my website, Dr. Nikki Knows. So it's www.drnikkiknows.com/shop. It's right there. They are retailing at $29.99. Visit the website, go take a look at it. The link is in my bio. It's in my link tree. I think that it is a great investment in yourself. I've been doing it myself. One of the things that also happened for me last year was, along with being in a real serious period of grieving, I'm also moving in a place in my life where I'm closer to menopause than not. I'll say that. And there is a period of perimenopause where there's so much hormonal fluctuations that a lot of women lose their sense of libido. They sort of lose their desire, that like sort of sex and eroticism can take a back seat because it just is not happening in your body in the same way. And I can say that those two things came together for me last year. But I also know that erotic pleasure, sexual pleasure, isn't the only type of pleasure. And so being able to also hold myself accountable and be thoughtful about how I can take care of myself through this time, how I can still make sure to honor joy and pleasure even in the midst of grieving, and that those things were not just important to me as an individual, but that my mother would be proud of me for continuing to honor my own joy as a source of my aliveness, my wholeness, that I was being intentional about seeking out things that made me happy, that made me feel good, that lit me up from the inside. And so that also was a part of my grief process. So I've had a couple women say, what if you don't like worried about erotic pleasure, sexual pleasure. This for you too. I think there's benefit for everyone. So thank you so much for joining the live. Yeah, we don't have any questions. Again, if you're watching this later, you got questions, you could drop them in the comment section. I'll be happy to answer. You can always DM me. You can also reach out to me to book a consultation for one-on-one coaching. I love doing this work. I love working with Black women and helping them reclaim their birthright and their access to pleasure and joy. And so if anything sounded good to you, resonated with you, but you might want some additional support, you might want me as an accountability partner in addition to the pleasure pursuit, definitely feel free to reach out and book a consultation with me as well. I am accepting new coaching clients right now. Thank you so much for your time and your interest and energy. I really appreciate it. And I'll see you later. Bye.